two things that I took away from the experience I'm about to share with you. One is that in every situation that you walk into, you've always got to think, how do I benefit from this? What do I get out of this? How do I gain from this? What do I have to win from a negotiation, from a conversation, from whatever it may be? That's one thing I learned. The second thing I learned is how it is that corruption can become endemic in a place. It's only until a systemic alternative to corruption is offered that you will find that corruption disappears on its own accord or by its own accord. Okay, so story time. I was flying from Uruguay to Colombia, and there was a 6-hour stopover in Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo has this brutalist airport, probably the ugliest I've seen in my life. And I was there at 11 or 11:30. My flight going from Sao Paulo to Colombia was at 5 p.m., I think. So 11:30, I eat, and I'm in line at 12:30 p.m., which is like multiple hours before my flight at 5 p.m. I was in line because they have all of these stands that let you supposedly check in yourself, but those didn't work for me, so I had to wait in line for things to move forward. As I was waiting in line, I noticed that there was a premium lineup on the other end of the room that had a loophole. By loophole, I just mean that the dividers separating the different parts of the line had one opening. So even if you weren't a premium ticket holder, you could get past that person who looks at your ticket to verify that you're a premium ticket holder, and you could just jump the line and get into that line. And the premium line went by faster, and it had far fewer people in it. There were maybe like 10 families in it, but the regular lineup had something like 50 or 60 families. It was crowded because the damn machine was not working for everyone. But this is at 12:30. I am like 4 hours early to my flight at 5 p.m. I'm like, there's no need for me to jump over, and I'm also breaking the rules, and I'm also taking away, I'm giving something to myself that everyone else cannot benefit from. So I stay in the line, and they eventually figure out that there's this loophole, and they close the loophole at like 1 p.m. I did see other people going into that line though, and I didn't really blame them all that much. Anyway, 1 p.m., I'm waiting in line. 1:30, 2 p.m., I'm waiting in line. 2:30, 3 p.m., I'm still waiting in line. And the line is not getting all that shorter. It's kind of staying stagnant. It's moving extremely slowly. Why? Because there's only 2 people at the front taking people and checking them in. And that's because the airline decided to rely on these automated check-in machines and didn't budget for the fact that they wouldn't work. Anyway, that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was whenever 1 p.m. came up, all of the people who had flights at 2 p.m. automatically were bumped to the front of the line. The airline would send someone to the front of the line and say, hey, if you have this flight going to Paris at 2 p.m., please come forward. And so then, 5 families or 10 families would move forward, and everyone else who's waiting in line kind of is stuck there because their flight happens afterwards. So this happens at 2 p.m., this happens at 2:30, this happens at 3, this happens at 4, and it just went to show you how annoying it is that people who show up early, who do all the right things, end up being mistreated by the system because, the system, or at least one part of the system, in an attempt to be considerate and generous, ends up incentivizing the wrong behavior. The wrong behavior being you show up late or you have an urgent flight to get to, you can skip the line and all of these people who showed up on time and get to your flight instead. And as a result, I only end up getting to the front of the line at 4 or like 4:30, scarily too close to my departure time, because that's when my flight is the urgent one and I am called up to the front of the line along with the 15 or 20 other families who are also on this flight. So that just goes to show how, even if there are good souls who try and make things right in a system, it can often incentivize the wrong behavior. So even though I showed up 4 hours early, I was not rewarded for that. There would have been no difference had I shown up an hour before my international flight to go take it. And that really pissed me off, because it just felt like the system was not there to reward the right behavior. It was rewarding the wrong behavior, so to speak. And it was also set up to get people to fail, which was the bigger issue. In a situation like that, it's clear that the airline does not care about you and the airport does not care about you. They don't have systems in place that put you and your interests forward. So this is where you have to rely on yourself to do so. This is something that my Brazilian friends told me over and over before I went to Brazil about the country. It is a place, like if you put aside all of the robberies and the thefts and all of that, it is a place where people are looking out for themselves. They are hustling. They are making sure that they're doing well. They're always going into situations thinking about how they can benefit and what they gain out of it and what they can trade things for. And I experienced that even with people who I considered to be friendly, or who I trusted, and for good reason. They were good people. It kind of felt like it was always a transactional relationship. There was always, they're giving something to me, but then you find out 3 days later that they actually want something from you. Like, sure, they can call an Uber driver for you to help you get back the wallet that you forgot in the car, but 3 days later, they're going to ask you to talk about their brand on Instagram in English and just say that it's awesome and that they're amazing people. I'm not saying that that wasn't a good deal. I'm just saying that when you go into these situations, there isn't a lot of them where things are given without expectation of return. And there aren't a lot of situations where people go into them without an idea of how they can use this and how they can benefit. That was the impression I got of Brazil from my Brazilian friends. But me as a Canadian, giving without expectation is so deeply ingrained in our culture, and considering other people is so deeply ingrained in our culture that it takes a huge culture shock, like being in Brazil in an airport where you're stressed and your flight is going to fly away from you without you in an hour because you were stuck in this long ass lineup that was not moving quickly enough for no fault of your own, before you learn to take care of yourself too. At least this was my experience growing up in Canada and traveling to Brazil. And what I learned from Brazil was that you have to take care of yourself. If I could go back and talk to Eugene at 12:30 p.m., looking at that opportunity, that loophole in the premium economy line to get onto the flight, I would have said, you should go for it. The worst that can happen is that they figure out that you're not actually premium economy and you go back to the lineup that you were in anyways, and you would have been called to the front anyways when your flight was an hour away from departure. There would have been no difference. And furthermore, you don't disrespect, you don't look down upon the people who were jumping the regular line to join the premium economy line because they were putting themselves first. You kind of had a sense of respect for them. So why would you expect other people to look down upon you and think of you negatively? One. And two, why would that matter? Who are these other people? They're literally just Sims. They are other players in the game who have no relation to you, who do not benefit you one bit. There's just no positive, there's no good that comes out of caring of the opinions of people who are not there to help you. In a sense, you're competitors. So I wish I had gone back and told myself, jump in the premium line, see what happens, and then find out. And it's always at airports where this seems to happen, where you have to consider that you are in a situation where you're competing with other people to get onto a plane, if you're late, that is. And so that was something that I had to go to Brazil to learn. It was the idea that you have to see the world in a zero-sum manner, and you have to see the world as a place where you're looking to benefit yourself. You're looking to get better yourself. You're looking to enrich yourself. And if you can enrich other people, that's great. But your priority is yourself. You're looking to enrich yourself. And so now I can understand how people who go into politics in many of these countries find that it is a system that is corrupt to the core. Everyone is corrupt. Everyone is benefiting themselves and taking advantage of things. And if you try and do things the right way, you end up shooting yourself in the foot, because that's just not how the system works, and you will achieve nothing. Even if it's a good thing that you want to achieve, you will achieve nothing if you try and achieve it in a corrupt system. So I learned as well from that experience how it is that corruption becomes endemic. You see other people taking advantage of the system, but there is no way out. There is no sidestep that lets things get fixed. I think, if you really wanted to end corruption in a system like that, you would have to offer another alternative. You would have to be the person who went up to those self-check-in machines and fixed them and said, okay, you guys, we've fixed these 12 machines. Let's start getting people to go through it. I think that's the way that you solve that issue. But as an individual, you should be enterprising, and you should try and put yourself forward as much as possible. And it is not your responsibility to take care of everyone else. It is the responsibility of the airline, with whom everyone else has their individual contracts. And if you are behaving in a way that puts you first, you are behaving in exactly the way that the airline behaves when they put themselves first. They made the choice to understaff that front desk counter that day. They made the choice to rely on machines that didn't work and to not have staff members help people. If they're not going to help you, there's just no incentive to cooperate and to be selfless and to put other people forward before you. So I think those are the two things that experience in Brazil taught me. And let me say, one of the reasons why Canada is such a great place to live is because by default, I think people are very generous and open and trusting. It is trusting by default. You can definitely abuse that trust. And to be clear, I am not saying you should abuse people's trust. because that's just terrible. If you make a commitment, you should stick to that commitment. But when you're in a situation and it's just you and one other party and you're negotiating about something or you're setting things up, you have to consider yourself. You have to ask, how do I benefit from this? What do I get out of this? What does the other person want? What are they trying to achieve? Because in many situations, there's not going to be a third party or a judgmental group of peers looking at you and your choices. It's just you and that other person in the state of nature deciding how things will be distributed. And in that case, you've got to take care of yourself, because that person will not be taking care of you 9 times out of 10. I think that was what Brazil taught me. It taught me how to think for myself. Kind of like a psychopath, where you are only thinking of yourself, but different in that you think about yourself first and then you think about others.